Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So it's been a couple weeks since my last product review and today I'm actually going to be reviewing two products for you at the same time. I know, I'm so efficient, you're welcome. So I wasn't actually looking for a new foundation, but I ran out of my Fenty foundation, the Pro Filter foundation, which I actually liked. I know I have dry skin and I've heard complaints about the foundation from people who do have dry skin because it is a little bit more on the matte coverage side, but honestly I was just so impressed with the color match and I really did like the formula, so that's why I stuck around with it for a while. But I'm always looking to try out new products. As you guys know, that is one of my favorite things to do here on my YouTube channel. So if you enjoy product reviews and beauty videos, definitely hit subscribe and stick around so you don't miss anything in the future. So I go where I always go when I have a question for you guys. I went on my Insta stories and I asked for stick foundation recommendations from you all. I was totally open to anything. I was looking for drugstore and for high end. As long as it is a good foundation, I am down to spend a little bit more money on it. The two that were actually the most popular were the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Stick Foundation and the Hourglass Vanish Stick Foundation. I've heard about the Hourglass foundation forever and ever and I have been really wanting to try it, but I was surprised by how many people also recommended a drugstore product as like one of their all-time favorite stick foundations. So I got to thinking and I thought it would be really fun to do my first ever Is This a Dupe and product comparison video with two products that are totally different in price, but from what I've heard from everyone and what I've seen so far are actually very similar in terms of formula. So here's the price difference, ready? So this Hourglass foundation is $46 and the Wet n Wild foundation is $5.99. So $6 foundation, $46 foundation. I'm really excited to do this comparison and show you what they both look like. I actually purchased the Wet n Wild foundation first, and of course, because you can't really open things and test them out in the drugstore, I bought the wrong shade. I bought a shade that's way too dark for me, so hopefully I can keep this and use it throughout the summer, or maybe I have a friend who it'll be a better match for. But this is the first shade of the foundation I bought. This is the Wet n Wild foundation in the shade Shell Bisque, and I actually thought it was funny because I went into the Space NK store in Soho. I had a gift card there, so that's how I bought this $46 foundation. And I asked one of the employees there to actually shade match me, which is something that they are much better about doing at these higher end stores. And the shade that she matched me in for Hourglass is actually called Shell. So I thought I wasn't too off from the Shell Bisque in the beginning, but I got home, I swatched them together, and I was like, no, this is not my correct shade. Hopefully over the summer, it'll be of more use to me. Maybe I could also mix it with something else, but for right now, I definitely need a little bit of a lighter shade. So I went back to CVS this morning and I bought a shade that is a much closer match, which is the Classic Ivory. Here are the swatches of the foundations on my arm. This is the Hourglass foundation in Shell. This is the Wet n Wild foundation in Classic Ivory, and this is the Wet n Wild foundation in Shell Bisque. So this one is definitely too dark. These two are not a perfect shade match, but they're definitely a lot closer. I'm using natural light to film today, so hopefully we can actually see the difference and the similarities. And yeah, so I'm excited to see these two side by side and talk you through what I think is similar, what I think it's different, and ultimately if I can tell the difference between the $46 foundation and the $6 foundation. I've zoomed you in so we can have a closer look at what's going on, not my breakouts, but when I actually go to apply the foundation. Although I guess it's kind of good I have breakouts for this video because we can see how the foundation actually covers them. The main ones I'm concerned about are these two at the moment. So before I actually apply any foundation, I would love to talk you through how I prep my skin before foundation. So as I mentioned earlier, I have dry skin, but even if you have normal skin with a stick foundation, because the texture is automatically going to be a lot richer and a lot more thick than any kind of liquid foundation you might be using, I definitely recommend having a nice hydrated base so that the product can really sit nicely on top of it and so it's not creasing or doing anything weird. About 30 minutes ago, I applied my day cream. I spoke about this in my April favorites video. This is the Lano Vitamin E Day Cream. I just like this one. It's super straightforward. It uses mostly natural ingredients and I feel like it gives me a nice base before I go into something. But I am also going to use a primer. So this is the First Aid Beauty Coconut Skin Primer. I've also spoken about this a lot before. I really enjoy this product. It really gives that nice kind of smoothed out base. So yeah, I make sure to give a nice even coverage of this to my face and also a little bit onto my neck area. Up until this point, I believe you guys have only ever seen me use a beauty blender to apply my foundation, but I am changing that up today because, again, you'll see with the stick foundation, it is much easier to kind of manipulate and control with a brush. So I'm going to be using my Sigma 3D HD Kabuki brush. This is what the brush looks like. It's kind of got this pointed angled tip, so you can kind of get under the eyes really nicely. I think it allows for a lot of good distribution, but it's still pretty stiff, so you can dab the product into your skin, and I really have been liking the finish of it. But let's go ahead and look at the Hourglass foundation first. It comes in this triangle pointed tip, and I'm going to apply this to the left side of my face. The way the woman suggested to apply it was kind of just to stamp it a bunch all over your face, so that is what I am going to do. So now that I have my nice hydrated base, let's go ahead and start to blend this out. Rather than dragging the product across my face, I do still like to use the kind of technique that I use with a beauty blender, which is to apply it with more of a bouncy motion. And you can automatically tell the difference that that foundation has made from the side of my face with nothing on it, and then the coverage that you get with the Hourglass foundation. I'm pretty happy with it. There is a little bit of product that's not sitting fully great up there, but that could easily be fixed with powder or setting spray. As I mentioned earlier, I really think giving yourself a good dewy base is the key to this. You can still see my skin glowing underneath it, which I really like about it. And again, that's probably why I would start out with a small amount and then kind of build it on in case you wanted more coverage, but I really don't think you need a lot of it, so that's why I hope this $46 foundation lasts me for a while. I really enjoyed how that applied, and let's go ahead and do the same thing with the Wet n Wild. So the Wet n Wild applicator, unlike the Hourglass one, is circular, not triangular, so it has a little bit of a thicker circumference here, so I want to make sure that I'm not going too crazy with it. I feel like the Hourglass one allows you to be a tiny bit more precise in terms of where you're placing the product. See, this one is kind of looking a little bit dark on my skin, but we're coming into summer here, people. This is the first time I've seen the sun in like 48 hours, and I know that doesn't sound like that long, but it really stresses me out. I'm definitely someone who is powered by vitamin D. I'm going to use the same technique and the same brush to get it smoothed onto my skin. Here's what it looks like blended into my skin. It's actually a better shade match than I thought it was going to be, and I tried to use the same amount of product. I might have used a little bit more of the Wet n Wild because that stick is a little bit bigger than the Vanish stick, so even though I felt like I used the same amount, I might have used a little bit more ultimately. So I do think the coverage is a little more full on this side, but again, you can still see my skin underneath it. I don't feel like I'm covered up in any way. Here's a closer look up at my forehead. Obviously these lines are kind of unavoidable because I make facial expressions, but I usually do put a little bit of the Laura Mercier translucent powder over that area of my face and also my under eye circles, just to kind of make sure that the product that I'm placing is going to keep them covered and keep them looking as smooth and as flawless as possible. Barring the fact that you're obviously still going to see a little bit of my breakouts because I have not yet applied concealer. I think most of the redness is gone. I feel like it looks really smooth. I feel like it looks really dewy. Honestly, if I just saw me walking down the street right now, I would not be like, why is half of her foundation different? I feel like they look pretty similar. Looking in the mirror, the Hourglass side of my face definitely looks glowier, but I also think that is because I did end up applying a little bit more of the Wet n Wild to it, and you can still see my skin underneath the product. Again, I love foundations that don't feel like I'm just putting on an entirely new face. I like foundations that enhance my skin and the way it looks naturally. You guys all know I'm a big skincare person, so taking care of my skin and making sure it can look its best without any makeup is always my first priority. So final thoughts, I honestly feel like I love both of these foundations pretty equally. I could definitely see myself wearing this as my more full coverage option throughout the summer. Going off of formulation here, I definitely still feel like they are pretty similar, and that was my main kind of criteria for this dupe. So from an aesthetic standpoint, I obviously prefer the Hourglass packaging. I think this is gorgeous, super reflective, super sleek looking, and I do actually like the triangle shape. That is really great for, again, getting kind of under the under eyes eyes or right around this area, and I like that it has a smaller applicator than this one does. I think it just allows you to be a tiny bit more precise. So if you've been wanting to try a stick foundation and you want to start off with a smaller investment, I definitely recommend starting out with the Wet n Wild one. I really think that as far as coverage and as far as formulation, they are pretty similar. So let me know in the comments down below, are you guys still big fans of Hourglass? I also am, by the way. I'm obsessed with their powder highlighters. I think they are so stunning, and I am obsessed with my ambient lighting palette. I also love the bronzer in there. I really do think those are such high quality products, and that is a place where you would want to spend the money. As far as this foundation goes though, I don't know. So if I just saved you $40, leave it in the comments down below. Also, please leave me any other questions you might have that I didn't answer in this video, requests for any future videos, or anything else you'd like to drop down there. I always love being able to continue the conversation with you all and get back to you on anything you might want to know. Please also give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, found it useful, and hit the notification bell when you subscribe to get notified every time I upload a new video, which is every Monday and Friday. Thank you all again so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!